No matter how the cachet of the WNBA elevates, remember, it could have been even better. You messed it up.
Following the rumors that Caitlin Clark would be traveling to Europe, ESPN is having its own meltdown, and it appears that they are beginning to regret how they treat. ESPN's Clark All Season was the place to witness Caitlin Clark be devalued and underappreciated. They never respected her and now believe they have the power to decide whether or not she travels to Europe.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
Molly Karam, an ESPN analyst, essentially refused to give Caitlin credit for the whole year, claiming that she was making fun of the sport. How could she say that without laughing? Caitlin Clark transformed the sport and got people talking.
She will do her best. I know she's talented, but she's not strong enough and she doesn't have enough experience right now to compete at this.
Another analyst denied that Caitlin Clark was being targeted by players. She was the most fouled player of the season, and at one point she even had a black eye. Hopefully, Caitlin can utilize her time off to look into opportunities in Europe that would synchronize ESPN and the WNBA, leaving them with nothing to discuss.
Nonsense about things that Caitlin was doing wrong when, in my personal opinion, she was doing nothing but going out there and playing great basketball every night and ignoring the hate that was coming to her from all sides.
It appears that ESPN and its analysts are unable to handle the heat that Caitlin brings, particularly now that there are rumors that she may move to Europe rather than pursue her career in the WNBA. ESPN has spent the entire season disparaging and undermining Caitlin, frequently downplaying her accomplishments while favoring others. Now that they are facing the very real possibility that the player they have consistently disrespected may leave the spotlight in America and take her talents overseas, they are panicking because they know full well that losing Caitlin would be a huge blow to their viewership and content.
What the NBA became. Even when Jordan was ascending and the league clearly saw that that was the dude and Nike was marketing the living hell out of Michael Jordan. I want to be like Mike. It was still Bird and Magic.
ESPN has been minimizing for months. From the beginning of the season, ESPN promoted the narrative that Caitlin Clark, despite her undeniable star power, was somehow falling short of the enormous expectations placed on her following her record-breaking college career at Iowa, while Angel Reese, another rising star in women's basketball, was having a better season due to Caitlin's talents. With ESPN pundits like Molly Karam and Monica McNutt stoking the debate, the comparison appeared to go on forever. Caitlin's ranking among the league's best players and the idea that the women's game was being ridiculed by her manner of play.
Making a basketball argument. You were making a basketball argument.
We're not saying we were making a basketball argument.
No, Andrea, I'm not going to let you do that.
Go ahead,
Andrea, I'm not going to let you make it seem like Caitlin Clark was averaging 5 points a game. At the time, she was still averaging 16 points a game, which was more than a lot of other guards that made the team. So don't do that. Don't make it seem like she was averaging 5 points and this was like a handout.
No, it wasn't a handout.
Look at her numbers. Look at her numbers comparable to the other guards that were on the team.
The harsh critiques felt deliberate, almost as if ESPN had made it their mission to diminish Caitlin's success by constantly positioning her in the shadow of her peers, rather than recognizing Caitlin's contributions to the game. They seemed intent on tearing her down, questioning whether she truly belonged among the WNBA's elite. But here's where the karma comes in. ESPN is now panicking because if Caitlin Clark moves to Europe, they won't be able to talk about her anymore. That's right, the same player they trashed all season long for not being a true star might pack her bags and leave, taking her massive fan base with her. ESPN's inability to recognize Caitlin's impact from the start could end up costing them dearly. For months, ESPN framed Caitlin as only being valuable due to her ability to draw viewership, arguing that she wasn't truly a star on the court, but merely a product of media hype. Yet now, with the very real possibility of her departure looming, they're scrambling to reverse that narrative.
It all started from the national championship game, and I've been dealing with this for 2 years now. And understanding, like, yeah, negative things have probably been said about me, but honestly, I'll take that because look where women's basketball is. People are talking about women's basketball, but you never would think that we'd be talking about women's basketball. I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person, it's because of me too, and I want y'all to...
They've come to understand that Caitlin is much more than just a player. They've created whole narratives and conversations around her presence. Losing her to Europe would not only affect ESPN's programming, but it might also send shockwaves through the WNBA. both of which greatly depended on her appeal to boost viewership and engagement. Take a look at how their perspectives have shifted.
That she was getting all of that, yet all of these eyeballs were coming to the league because of her. The Indiana Fever was turning away games into...
Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe were among the few voices who consistently defended Caitlin Clark throughout the season, reminding audiences of her undeniable greatness on the court. Both Smith and Sharpe recognized that Caitlin was being unfairly targeted not only by ESPN but also by WNBA players, largely due to her rookie status and the massive amount of attention she garnered during her time in college. They argued that the scrutiny she faced was excessive and that she had already proven herself as one of the top talents in the game. However, even with their backing, Caitlin was subjected to a barrage of criticism from other ESPN analysts, particularly Molly Karam and Monica Minut. PN analysts constantly critiqued her, while WNBA players also set their sights on Caitlin, seeing her as the league's latest high-profile rookie who needed to be humbled and put in her place. The attention she received, both positive and negative, was overwhelming, but Caitlin didn't crack. Instead, she rose above the noise and proved her doubters wrong, delivering one of the most remarkable rookie seasons the WNBA has ever witnessed. Despite the heightened criticism and targeting, Caitlin's resilience and elite play shined through, helping turn around the fortunes of the Indiana Fever and cementing her status as one of the brightest young stars in the game.
Viewership, which is up 400% to 40%. Between ticket sales, which is up 93% to 16%. Between regular game viewership, which is up 180% to 20%. What Caitlin Clark has done is grown the WNBA exponentially. She did in 5 weeks what would have taken 5 years. And as it pertains to draft viewership, she did in 5.
It was no easy task for Caitlin to lead the Indiana Fever, a team that had spent years around the bottom of the WNBA, to their first playoff position in what seemed like forever. Not only did Clark survive her rookie season, but she flourished, putting on performances that silenced even her harshest critics every single week. Despite the tremendous pressure to perform, her poise and brilliance on the court were nothing short of extraordinary. She elevated a team that many had written off by showcasing her leadership and unparalleled talent.
Could be a team overseas who would love to snatch Caitlin Clark away from us and give her a crazy offer. I mean, Ice Cube was about to give her $5 million to play in less than 10 games.
However, despite these achievements, ESPN was unable to change their narrative until the end of the season, when Caitlin's dominance could no longer be disregarded. At that point, they started to recognize Caitlin's brilliance, almost as if they had been supporting her the entire time. It was almost comical how quickly ESPN changed course and praised Caitlin as the star they had spent the majority of the season disparaging.
How's it feel? Do you care?
However, Caitlin Clark didn't want ESPN's approval because she had already disproved everyone throughout a season in which she was expected to struggle and was frequently singled out by players and commentators who said she wasn't prepared for the spotlight. Delivered in a way that nobody anticipated, and she went on to become the standout player of her rookie class. Given the pressure, stress, and targeting she has received from the league and ESPN, it would almost seem reasonable for Caitlin to think about relocating to Europe. This would send a strong message to ESPN and the WBA about what they would be missing if they continued to undervalue one of their brightest stars.
All of this comes together, and you need a star. And she is the
Draft viewership, which is up 400% to 40% between ticket sales, which is up 93% to 16% between regular game viewership, which is up 180% to 20%. What Caitlin Clark has done is grown the WNBA exponentially. She did in 5 weeks what would have taken 5 years, and as it pertains to draft viewership, she did in 5 days. If Caitlin Clark does indeed decide to take her talents overseas, ESPN and the WNBA will have no one to blame but themselves. They had every opportunity to uplift one of the greatest young talents in the game, but instead they chose to criticize her, diminish her accomplishments, and undermine her impact on the league. Caitlin, with her electric play and undeniable charisma, was a key driver of the WNBA's recent viewership boost. Without her, the league's ratings are bound to take a massive hit. Let's not forget that stars like Caitlin don't just attract casual viewers, they bring a loyal, passionate fan base that follows them wherever they go. If she decides to leave, her fans will follow her to Europe, and the WNBA could find itself struggling to maintain the momentum it had worked so hard to build. I've been telling you about the influence of Caitlin Clark, so it's good to see something different when we talk about the most viewed WNBA Finals game ever. Having a significant impact on a rating, ESPN would suffer just as much from Caitlin's exit. The network thrives on telling stories about famous athletes, and Caitlin Clark has been one of their most talked about players for the entire season. They may have occasionally disparaged and minimized her accomplishments, but it's undeniable that Caitlin was a frequent topic of discussion on practically every sports program. ESPN built a large portion of its coverage of women's basketball around Caitlin. Her games, performances, and even off-court actions were regularly analyzed and debated. If she leaves for Europe, what will they talk about? Caitlin's departure would create a major void in the narratives and discussions they've come to rely on, leaving SC scrambling to fill the void she would undoubtedly leave behind. WNBA needs to treat its Meest star better, or they risk losing a player who could have been the league's face for years to come. Caitlin Clark represents a new era in women's basketball, one in which players have more control over their careers and aren't dependent on the league or the media to define their legacy. This shift gives athletes the power to make decisions based on their own ambitions rather than outside pressures. ESPN may have spent the season trying to tear her down, but Caitlin's success speaks for itself. She's not just another gifted rookie, she's a transformative figure with